journey today has taken me to the little village of Kilcoo in County Down, home of the All-Ireland Senior Club Football Champions. We're here in Kilcoo GAA Club, and with me now is Jerome Johnston, a legend in Down football and here in Kilcoo, revered as a person. And of course he had three sons who played in the All-Ireland Club final, who emerged victorious, defeated Kilmacud, as we know, in the final, and involved in the build-up the three, and the goal eventually scored by Jerome Johnston. What was that like as you saw the move unfolding? You saw it hundreds of times on the field here in Kilcoo.
I did, Brian. I'm an awful person. I have to get sitting on my own when I get to football, because when I'm sitting beside other people I get too emotional in the game, and I nearly would fall out with people. And look, I just go away and I sit on my own. So instead of sitting beside my wife and daughter in the Hogan stand where my ticket was for, I walked right round and sat on my own in the music stand. But in come and our man, a good friend of my own, Colin McKee, and his wife Maureen, and they sit down beside me. He says, what are you sitting there? I actually sat in the middle of the hurlers, the Ballygunner hurling supporters in the hurling final. And then I was sitting on my own, and him and his wife came in and says, what are you doing sitting on your own? Should you not be the Kilcoo people? I said, no, I need to get to sit on my own, because these things get to me, and I had heart problems years ago, and I was always told you needn't get excited and stuff like that there. But anyway, I was sitting there, and it's the goal. I thought all along, we're going here. We haven't performed, we just haven't turned up on the day. Our players that we've looked at in high regard and has got us over the line on so many occasions, just are not performing to the way they should here. As the game unfolded, as we get back into the game, and that time that Niall took the 45, and between ricochets and fingers touching balls and coming off players' knees, you thought, you know what, maybe there's something. We got it to extra time. As it got to extra time, you were thinking, yes, maybe there's a gnomon. We've got to extra time with Glen and Mahara, and we've got to extra time with St Finbar's, and we've come through them. Maybe this is, but then as extra time went on, and Kilmacud were dictating the game and controlling the game, and you thought, no, Lady Luck has let us down on the third occasion. But just that time that we come up the field, you were just hoping. And as it got closer to the goals, it was nearly a blur to me. I remember seeing Sheelan getting the ball, and I'm not just saying this, I was delighted to see him on it, because right up through the years he was always a wee boy that backed himself, would have thought the game through a lot, and I says to myself, if he gets a half a chance, he could put her away here. But as they closed him in and come closer to him, look, it's hard to see it from the stand, but when you watched it back on the big screen in Croke Park, he had the ball, he took a step to his right on his wrong side, he passed the ball with his right foot on him, a predominant left. Don't know where Ryan came out of. I said to Ryan when he came home, how did you not score that goal by? And he turned and he says, I seen the goalie advancing, I knew if I could slip it underneath him, it's going into the net. He says, I never seen the boy in the line. He says, and I was turning away when my fist clenched, thinking I had scored the goal. He says, and with that, he says, I just seen the ball over my left shoulder coming back out again. And he says, I just seen Jerome getting it and burying it in the net. He says, and I thought, hallelujah, there is a God here. This is our day. And from my perspective, I filled up with tears. There's no point in telling you I didn't. I filled up with tears, and with emotion and pride, I didn't want anybody to see me. So I just, as the game unfolded and they came down the field looking for that equalising point, and Eugene Brannigan, Eugene caught the ball, gave her to Ryan McAvoy, who played her up to Sean Ogue and got it free, as you say, the rest is history. And I remember talking to the boys the next day about it at home. Of course, everybody in the parish was in a place we'd never been before.
Cloud 9.
Even beyond Cloud 9, or sure. There was a 10 or 11, I think we were up in it somewhere. But look, it was just one of them things, and as the fella says, when things like that happen, you just wonder, this is why you get involved in football, to have days like this, and especially with your parish, and it's just, to be fair, there was a man I held and still do hold him in very high regard. He was a school teacher of mine, and I'll never forget the conversation, but he sent me a letter after it, a man called PJ McGee. And PJ would be a great GAA man, be very well respected around these parts. He's a neighbouring club, but he was also our PE teacher at school, and he had been very good to me as a PE teacher. He learnt me a lot of things, but he sent me a letter after the match, and he says, "I'll never forget the day we had a conversation." And he says, "And the words you told me was, someday, PJ, we will win the Club All-Ireland." He says, "I'll never forget it. I read my throat and I looked at you and says, the wee man's lost it completely." And he says, I says to you after, "What makes you think that?" You says to me, "The day we won the All-Ireland Fela, the next day on the Monday, I looked at the cup and I seen all the names that was written on that cup, and I thought, they've all went on and won a senior All-Ireland. I think with a bit of lady luck, and if these boys stick at it, we have enough talent in our club that will get us an All-Ireland title here." And he was written, I wish I'd have brought the letter with me, Brian, let you read it. It was put in the cupboard now, it'll be kept forever in a man.
Sure.
But he says, "I remember you telling me that." And he says, that was the first thing came into my head when the final whistle went in Croke Park. I remember that man telling me that. Jesus, me and Joseph, surely I should be asking this man for the lotto number if he could have foreseen that. But look, the fella says, it's all history now, and it's great history and memories.
Now that it's happened, what's it been like since, around the village of Kilcoo?
Oh, look, as I said to somebody after, if heaven's anything like this, I want to die now. Because this is the best feeling in the world. And look, you love just being out and involved with people, and people still coming over. The other day there was a man come up to me in Castlewell and he says, "I hadn't seen you since the All-Ireland final, Jerome." God, he says, it was something else, wasn't it? And it's only when people like that from far away comes and talks to you and says what it means to them, it hits home to you every so often that this was us. This was what it means to our wee club, this wee place. You know, look, it's hard to put into words, Brian. I'll just be honest with you. It is the best feeling in the world.
Refer to the All-Ireland Fela and winning that in 2006. It must be special for you to see this team emerge and come through at senior level, because you were so much part and parcel of it yourself, and of course your family involved in your sons.
Yeah, well, funny, that year, at the start of the year, we knew we had a very good underage team, because they'd all been successful even further down, even at their own schools, in different schools that they went to. They all were playing regular football with their schools and all making the A teams in the school, so there was talent there. But I remember thinking to myself, my mate that I had in with me at the time, Mickey McLean, who was a good fella, a good football man too, I said to Mickey, "I'm going to get 3 boys to join this management team." "Who?" And I says, "I want Aidan Brannigan, Conor Lavery and Donal Kane." I said, "Them's 3 boys, because I foresee them as like big brothers and they're role models to these boys. These boys all look up to these lads." I said, "I'm going to ask them would they come involved here and come in with us, and they could add something to the whole thing." I says, "I'm happy, but if that's what you think, go ahead." So I went and asked, and the 3 boys, Julia Blaze, "Yeah, no problem, we'll come aboard." So I think that was a master stroke at the time. Not that I created it, but just them 3 men was something else.
Yeah.
Because they knew when to have the crack with the boys, they knew football inside out, but they were their idols. And everything they bought, they swallowed, they ate every word them boys said, which I think when you can get young ones to buy into something like that, it was a massive, massive lift to everything, and it was an unbelievable asset. And it was just, as the year went on, even when we stayed in a place called Carnew in Wicklow that year, and even the people at Carnew used to say to me, "You think Conor Lavery was one of the players? He's the same size as them." But he just was. He was the older brother.
I know.
As was Aidan Brannigan, as was Donal Kane. They were just great people. But I'll never forget it. When we went to the Fela the first day, we played St Jude's, and your son played for St Jude's, played in goals.
That's right, John Bryan.
And we seen these big mountains of men coming walking out onto the field, and I knew they were bound to be looking down the field and saying, it must be a wee half-time match. There's a crowd of children down, not kicking about and on goals. But this was the team we were going to be playing, and look, we knew what a system, what a style of football that suited us, and I used to always tell the boys, I don't care how big any man is that's playing against you, he still can only kick the ball about 8 or 9 inches of the ground.
Correct.
So once he brings it down there, that's in your territory, not his. So you get in round him and make life difficult and block him and tackle him and take the ball off him because he has to kick it down there. I says, that's what we'll pride ourselves on, working hard and have a system of kicking the ball out. And that time Darrell Brannigan, it's wonderful how things happen. That time Darrell Brannigan, we played Darrell Brannigan, wouldn't have been maybe a thing that would have been done then, but we played Darrell Brannigan as a corner forward.
Yeah.
But he came back and played like a wee sweeper.
Yes.
And, you know, people thought at the time, what are they doing with that wee small boy back? But he was a brilliant wee reader of the game. He got in people's faces. He was like a Jack Russell among Alsatians. He was brilliant. He played to the system. We always played, Jerome played full forward in that team too. We had Darragh O'Hanlon, who missed out there in his All-Ireland. He played on the team too. Niall Kane was our goalie that time. Brilliant man at kicking the ball out, as you've seen even in All-Ireland. Ryan, he was in midfield with a big lad, James McLean at the time. They were all lads that come through and played. But even Paul Davlin and them boys who were just a year or two older never missed any of our trainings. They used to come over to our trainings all the time, kicking about with the lads, and they were a great bond of bros, the whole lot of them, which evolved on as time went on.
Well, that was a quite remarkable achievement to win the All-Ireland Féile, and then in February 22 to be crowned All-Ireland Senior Champions. You were a visionary in many ways. Your family played a huge role in Kilcoo's success. So now you're coming into the village as I did today, and you see up Kings of Ireland. What's like, you see that every day, I'd say.
Oh, look, there's not a day I drive down that road and that's the first thing. Look, people for years, and still do, when they go past the chapel, they bless themselves.
Yeah.
Well, every time I look over that, I feel like blessing myself because that's heaven. To see that writ on the bank with the women that done that, you know, look, that's where you live. You live for them things. And look, I love it. Every time I see it, it just takes it home and you think of the match. There's not a day goes past that we don't watch or talk about the match at home. And I can't, by the way, my wife, they come from a family that knows nothing about football or knew nothing and had no interest in football. And when I was only going with her, I used to go up every Sunday because we hadn't got RTE, but they had.
Sure.
And I watched all the matches on her, sitting in the sitting room in my own in her house. And nobody would ever ask me who was winning, who was playing or nothing about it. But because I got to sit there and watch the matches. But as time goes on, now, if I was in a quiz the day about GAA, she's the first person I would want because there's not a thing she does not know about Gaelic football and her now. She just, probably it was been talked in the house all the time, so she just got involved. That's the way it is.
Jerome Johnston, it's a great pleasure to talk with you and thank you very much for joining us here in your home place in Kilcoo, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian.